Okay. Hey, here we are
Well,
for another round.
yes,
Another podcast
day,
here.
another opportunity to share with one another and with others out there.
This is my good friend Doug Balzer. He's from the River Street Church of God.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the way you say it over there?
Yep. Generally, we just say River Street Church.
Okay.
Yeah, that usually does the trick.
Well, and I'm Pastor Chuck Sabin. I'm with Zion Lutheran Church, and we are having a podcast today entitled, "Oh God, Where Art Thou?"
Yes.
And our topic today...
Our topic today is, God, where art thou with the homeless and the poor?
That's right. When it comes to poverty,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of, where the money goes and where it doesn't end up.
Yes.
And how that makes people suffer. And where is God at in relationship to the poor? I remember one time being at Luther Seminary, and a person gave a talk. They had grown up in a real poverty-stricken area in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he kept saying, there's nothing wrong with being poor. It's just mighty inconvenient.
Now, that's...
And I think he was trying to get at the stigma that some of us who have affluence, who have means, tend to look down on the poor when we shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
But for the grace of God.
But for the grace of God, we've been fairly fortunate, I think, in many ways. Some of our backgrounds, it's maybe at times we've had plenty and we've had more than enough, and been able to share with others, and then at times we've been without.
Yeah, for sure.
The one thing in life, if you've experienced it the way I have, it's been ups and downs in those areas, both growing up with my going back, my experiences growing back and forth between my parents and my various different grandparents. And of course, the grandparents were agrarian, were farmers, and were very extremely self-sufficient people.
Yeah. Mine too, by the way.
Yeah, and I think the times that we thought we were without or such like that, we really always had what we needed. We had
really
food in our mouths, clothes on our backs, and a roof over our head.
Absolutely. We weren't even close to what some people have been experiencing in and around us. When I first started into ministry, I started as a youth director, and I was a youth director for many years. And I can't remember seeing a homeless person where I was a youth director in Cambridge, for example, Minnesota, at the Lutheran Church there. And I don't remember ever seeing a homeless person while I was there. And then I took my first pastorate in Benford, North Dakota, for a tri-county ministry. And I don't remember ever seeing a homeless person in that community. I knew that there were poverty was in that area. We were close to Spirit Lake Reservation, and occasionally we would do ministry, and we would make connections with other spiritual leaders from that tribal nation there, and we would see poverty in a different way. And that was maybe my first real exposure to poverty. But it wasn't until I went to Salt Lake City that I experienced my first homeless person showing up at the church and seeking help.
Yeah.
And I was eager to help. I really wanted to help. But I found out how difficult it is to even help one person. And
let
so,
alone try to be helping the overall larger community.
My goodness. It's interesting. We're having this podcast this week, and just yesterday, the mayor of Newburgh called me, Rick Rogers,
Yeah.
and spoke with me about the homeless person that we have living in our parking lot in the little Turtle Dove camper sleeper unit. And of course, we started talking about what was the city's involvement with that or not. And we began to talk about what can we do, because in this last, even before COVID hit,
Yes.
the homeless community here in Newburgh, we're in Newburgh, Oregon.
Yes.
I came about 10 years ago into ministry. It'll be 11 years in June that I've been here.
Mm-hmm.
In that first year, I could count on one hand the number of homeless people that stopped in for help that first year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're talking about over 100 people are seeking help in some way, and I have some sort of contact with in the hundreds.
Yes.
It seems like it has grown.
It
Has homelessness grown?
I've only been here about 18 months, and I can tell you that it has grown in and amongst our community. When I first came, we have a great work in that we do at River Street Church, as well as what you do here at Zion Lutheran
It's
as
a
well too.
similar effort, actually.
Yeah, in fact, one of the wonderful things is we complement each other so well in that. But we do a simple supper, a community table where everybody's welcome, and a simple supper where folks can come and get food, and then we also try to help distribute other things in that they
Right.
may need, and we
Right.
also have a shower ministry as well too, where at least we open it up once a week where they can come in and get a shower, and then if there's other opportunities to do that as well too, we let people in for that as well. But I've seen it grow exponentially in that from the number that it was, and it's really changed a lot in the way
It
it
almost
functions
feels
with,
out of control
Yeah.
now. And so what is God's posture towards the homeless? What is his attitude? What is our attitude as the church? What is our attitude as Christians? And of course, I've met many homeless individuals that are Christian people.
Yes.
And can I use that same phrase that the gentleman used back at Luther Seminary when he said, "There's nothing wrong with being homeless. It's just mighty inconvenient."
Yeah.
I mean, can I say that?
Yeah, actually,
It almost feels like there is something wrong with being homeless. I would think that the inconvenience of that or the hardship of that, I'm not quite so sure I could make it as a homeless
it takes
person.
it takes a community of homeless people to help other people who are homeless all to make it. They actually network together and actually help one another in so many different ways, and yet at the same time take advantage of each other. As well too.
Yeah. So there's kind of like the dark side of the homeless community, and then there's the brighter side of the homeless community. Yeah, I've seen some tremendous kindness and compassion going on between one homeless person to the other.
Yes.
But still, our question is, where is God at in relationship to the poor? Is there any scripture at all that talks about this?
Well, for me, the one that when I was looking and praying about this, and the one main scripture that spoke out to me came out of Proverbs. And of course, I love the Proverbs, getting the words of wisdom that came from the writer. And the one that came to me is this one that came out about the poor. It says Proverbs 14:31. It says, "Those who oppress the poor insult their maker." But those who are kind to the needy honor him. So
Okay. So God is kind of aligning himself with the poor.
Yes.
There
Mhm.
is
Yeah, and that's one thing I think we definitely see in the respect, with Jesus when it comes to the poor and the marginalized and the disadvantaged. He did a lot to align himself with them as well. And of course we reflect upon the Beatitudes. Blessed are the poor.
right.
For,
Right.
for theirs
And
is
the
the
Luke
kingdom of heaven.
passage seems to be lends itself more to talking about actual poverty.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas
Versus the Matthew
which
passage.
is talking
yeah.
about poor in spirit. And so there is, but we do know that at one point, Jesus says, that which you do for the least of these, you do for me.
For me. Yes.
So I was hungry and you fed me,
Yes.
I was naked and you clothed me.
I was thirsty and you gave me drink.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so can we begin to say that God, where God is possibly at with homelessness, is that he cares a heck of a lot.
Yes.
And he feels compassion and empathy. It's right there in the scriptures where he's being empathetic. And he's also charging his believers, his church, his people, which I guess you could say everybody is God's people. There are those that believe in God and there are those that don't. And I don't know that we who are believers are supposed to make a distinction necessarily, especially in the way that we treat people. If we treat, believers better than we're treating a homeless person, well, that might not go so well with God.
No.
Yeah. Now,
No,
I want to just say what my choice of scripture was. I went to the Torah, Deuteronomy 15, and it says, "If among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart or shut your hand against your poor brother, but you shall open your hand to him, lend him sufficient for his need, whatever it may be. For the poor you will always have with you in the land. Therefore I command you, you shall open wide your hand to your brother, to the needy, and to the poor in your land."
Yes.
Okay, so that's the Old Testament, that's the Torah, the Jewish faith, the Hebrew faith, and there God is telling us that we are to open our hand
Yes.
to the poor.
And that is such a wonderful picture that we need to get about the God and the God as represented in the Old Testament, that he is a God of love and compassion and care. Because this isn't only, if I remember correctly, in that there's even a little bit more to this, that didn't limit it only to those people who were Hebrews and of the tribes, but
That's right.
also to the foreigners in
To
their
the
land.
sojourner.
To the sojourners. Yeah.
So in other words, the stranger, the alien in your midst is another translation. And so
Yes.
how we treat people from other countries is also included in this. God's
Yes.
attitude expands to being compassionate and receptive. Hospitality really is not an option for a follower of God, because God's hospitality.
Well, and that's one thing we should think of in the respect to the whole of creation, is the incredible garden planet that God has given us to abide in and to live in, and how plentiful it is.
Oh my goodness.
And
Yes.
in fact, it's so plentiful with what he's given us and what we've been allowed to learn how to do in cultivating food, and that we really honestly have enough food to feed the world.
We do. It's a distribution problem.
And it's a distribution problem, yes.
And that must make God question our compassion
Yeah.
as humanity,
And
as human beings.
and what what our ultimate motivations are, and the respect of the level of our generosity and our care for our fellow human being, as well as for our planet, too. So
I really wonder if this disproportionate poverty, being rich, being affluent, having means, not having means, is the cause of a lot of wars. I kind of wonder, going back, and I'm not trying to make any political statement at all, but when the Twin Towers came down, that was, other than COVID, I think, and other than the school shootings or the mass shootings, the Twin Towers coming down was another one of those events, like President Kennedy getting shot, those startling events that take place. But the Twin Towers coming down, when you think of who was responsible for that and the poverty that is suffered in that region of the world and the exploitation of resources that take place and their anger, now I'm not justifying what they did. That is not justifiable.
No. I agree.
But on some level, that poverty is an extreme pain. It's very difficult to manage that. So another part of this homelessness that we're talking about, and I think that we're kind of establishing that God aligns himself in favor of our being compassionate to the poor, us serving the homeless community and helping them as best we can.
Yes.
But another part of that is mental stability.
Yes.
Mental health.
Well, that is one of the bigger pictures in this, because we have a large proportion of our homeless community who are dealing with mental health issues. And in order to assist them and help them, we're consistently advocating for them. And we're also trying to find opportunities to get them into these appointments and other things that they need to work with the system so that they can get the help they need.
Right.
So we can get them into mental health treatment, or get them appropriate medications for being bipolar or manic depressant in those respects, in those ways, dealing with the various things. It's a big challenge.
It's a big challenge, and one of the protests that I can hear a friend of mine from my church bringing up at this point, or he's hoping, I suppose if he's watching this, he'll finally go, oh, finally you said what I've been wanting you to say, and that's that we don't want to be codependent, get into codependency, where some of our homeless friends are they're into using drugs.
Yes.
There are various levels of homelessness. Some are higher functioning. Some are there just happen to become homeless because they lost their apartment, they lost their job, they might have had a health issue at the time, and really there's nothing particularly wrong with them as people. No mental health problems, nothing like that. I can remember a family showing up at our church about 4 or 5 years ago, and they had 3 kids, 2 adults in their van, and they were looking for help. And I can remember helping them.
Yes.
And and they slept in our parking lot a few nights, maybe more than a few nights, and this made everybody a little bit nervous what was going on. But I see this family today. They're in an apartment. They both have jobs. Their kids are in school. What they needed was help.
Yes.
They needed a little bit of help, and they made it. And of course, this makes it's so wonderful when this happens. And your desire is that would be the story in every case.
And that's what we would like to see in every case. Unfortunately, I know we don't. The issues of addiction, and as we were saying, mental health, and other things are really dealing with some systemic issues with the abilities of working in and through our system that work against them in so many different ways.
Oh, you are so right. I can remember across from our church where I was at in the Salt Lake City area, it was actually Roy, Utah. One morning when I was leaving church, I saw a gentleman across the street from us. Beds, couches, all sorts of things were on the front lawn. And he didn't look well, and he was sitting on the step, and he was having a garage sale. He was trying to sell his stuff. I went and talked to him, and he was on kidney dialysis. He had a couple of teenage sons that were living with him. And so our church began to help him. He was a great, wonderful guy, and we began to help him. And then we found out, he came over, he would have coffee with me in the morning. He came over, and he said, "Pastor, I have to tell you that my social service agent is lowering their money to me because your church is buying groceries for me." Okay, so because we as a church were buying groceries for this, or supplying groceries, basically the agent lowered their money that what they were supplying to him. So in other words, no matter what we gave, he couldn't get ahead.
Yeah.
And that's one system working against another system.
Yeah.
And this is where I really thought to myself,
Wow.
is there really separation of church and state here?
Well, that lends to the thought that there isn't in the respect that...
If there was true separation of church and state, the state should have not even counted what we were doing. And I wish that they wouldn't.
Yeah.
But they do, and they deduct it, you know. The people that are receiving help have to, now you might not have known that out there. So it's difficult to help. But our main question, Doug, we have to go back to our main question is, "Oh God, where art thou?" in relationship to the homeless. Now, we're not going to be able to give everybody any satisfactory answer. But I still am of the belief that God identifies more than we think that he does with the homeless.
Yes.
That he's more compassionate than possibly we are. And putting conditions on our charity is something that I don't really find in the scriptures. It doesn't say, I was hungry and you fed me, except when I was kind of a scoundrel.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that. It's just, just give.
Right. And I think that's one of the things that's been really wonderful in the respect in relationship that we have with so many of the homeless, is that we are giving to them without any expectations. And
it's true. We are.
And in giving to them without expectations, and that opening ourselves up to being in relationship with them, really genuinely loving them and caring about them.
And learning their name, calling them by their first name, and learning about them, and trying to get to know them. I do have, and I know that you have in your church, we do have homeless people that come to worship.
Yep, we do.
On and off. We would like each of them to be more consistent.
Yeah.
But there are ups and downs in their life, and but I think that our attitude towards the homeless should be what God's is, and it's that we will work in solidarity with them as much as we can. And it is not easy to help people get out of poverty.
It's really easy to get into it.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many people live.
It's easier to lose money than to make it.
It is so much easier to lose money than to make it. So many people are living one paycheck away from homelessness.
Right.
in our culture and society. But once they're in this, there's a whole shift of mindset in that comes in and changes because they get knocked down and they keep getting knocked down and they lose trust, they lose hope in the system, and
Yes, I
that's
think
where
that
we come in.
hopelessness-
That's where we come in as the church, and if we really walk with them as Jesus, walking with them, loving them, and not complaining, condemning, or criticizing them, but walking with them and loving them and offering our help, even when they disappoint us, and even when they really miss the mark to say and do some things, but not rejecting them or doing the proverbial kick them to the curb type thing,
Right.
which
Now I know that we're close to the end of our podcast in
Yes.
time, and I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface of
No.
this arena. And one of the questions that we might want to field at some point is, do you think God would want the church to do more?
yeah, I think that is a really good question. Where is God in the church?
What would that
helping
look like?
the poor?
What would that look like? And I want to believe, as you would, of course, want
Yeah.
to believe, that
Yeah.
they would respond like Jesus would respond.
Love them, embrace them, be able to give them the dignity that they need as human beings. And I think this is probably one of the biggest things that's part of the problem out there when you're encountering and engaging homeless people, and that a lot of people like to look away from them because they interpret everything they're doing or the actions that they're doing is that they absolutely want money from you, and that sometimes the simplest thing that they are looking for is just to have their human dignity recognized.
Right.
You
It's dehumanizing not to be able to have means. And
Yes.
and so we'll close with that thought. There's nothing wrong with being homeless. It's just mighty inconvenient. God bless you all, and we will see you next week.